Hi and welcome to Coaches on the Couch, your relationship specialist exploring human behaviour. My name is Sharon Page and this is Phil Pollard. And today's topic of discussion is why we do what we do. Now we've actually left this as our final discussion for this season. This is actually our last episode, isn't it, Phil?
Look, it is, and it's an awesome topic to begin with, because this is what ties being human, I think, together as one.
Yes,
Yeah.
so we thought we'd leave this one for the end.
Yeah.
So why do we do what we do?
Look, you've heard me say this in prior episodes. I believe that we're our habits and patterns and routines, but mostly unconsciously about them. So it's all around identity, and we've got an identity specialist coming up later on in the show.
We do. She's
Actually, earlier on the show.
Yes.
Yeah, and an email that addresses this as well.
Yep.
But identities, like why do we do the things we do?
Yeah, well, it's a great question, Phil. I mean, we look to each other right now in this space that we're in.
Mm.
Who are we really? You know, how do we define ourselves? Is it defined by the past? Is it defined by experiences? Is it defined by the roles that we've played in our life? You know, what actually makes up who we are right now? And you know, we've spoken about this in the past a lot. Quite often, it's a perception around you know, experiences in the past or the roles that we've taken on that really form our opinion of ourselves today.
Yeah, well, you know, I truly believe that, and it's all made up. Like everything's made up. From the minute we're born, it's made up, but we don't know it's made up.
Yep.
And we got our parents. Well, my parents told me that my name was Phil, and I believed them. They told me I was born on July 23rd, and I believed that. It's funny how I didn't put a year on that. But anyway, they told me when I was born, they told me where I was born, they told me my name, they told me what school I should go to, and they told me what was right and what was wrong, and I believed it like it was the truth.
Yeah.
And it was real, and that formed an idea of who I was. And I'd watch stuff on the news, and stuff on the news would be frightening and shocking, and my parents would say that's right or that's wrong, and I started to believe what they believed, and my friends told me what was going on. So it all comes from somewhere way back here.
Absolutely.
Until you have realisation that, you know, what if that's not the truth? You know, it's what I always say to my clients is, what do you believe to be true that isn't?
Great question.
Huh?
Yeah.
So, you know, our guest coming up now, I want to bring her on nice and early because she loves exploring this with us. And
She's a specialist in this field, isn't she?
Look, she has a PhD in metaphysics and has an extensive experience in behavioural science. For over 20 years, she has worked with thousands of people, unleashing their potential, and is a sought-after keynote speaker, published author, and an authority in the field of human development. She's been described as Anthony Robbins meets Wayne Dwyer. Her passion is understanding people and what drives them. Please welcome Dr. Rosemary McCallum.
Oh, thanks for that, guys. I'm really excited to be here because that's if I am here. I might not really be here. I might be home sleeping.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, did you see that? You know, it's like the question posed by Tweedledee to Alice: if the Red King is dreaming you, who are you when you wake up? You know, so one of those complicated things. But yeah, identity is a huge thing. And we're conditioned into identity from a very early age. And basically by 7, it's all over. It's all over, Red Rover. The Jesuits used to say, show me the 7-year-old, I'll show you the man. And it's all based on how our brain development happens in that time. In the womb, we're symbiotically bonded to mum until 9 months out. So we're our mum. We have whatever she feels, we feel. And if she's scared of something, we're scared of something. Plus, just to add to the fun, we inherit 25% of our parents' belief and 12.5% from both grandparents. So we're doomed before we even start. So whose beliefs are we actually believing here?
Right.
But one of the great things about it is because we've got to get energy from our parents until we're 13 years old, we can't actually take in higher vibrational energies. Otherwise we'd sort of nuke a little bit. And that's why 13-year-old was adulthood in old days. Now it's 75 is adulthood. You know, so what happens is in that time is that we go through these what we call staging times, and round about 2 we move into I amness. Now, viewers, if you've ever had a 2-year-old or seen one or heard they exist, you know that they can be pretty horrible for their mum, but really good for everyone else. And, you know, someone minds them and they say, oh, they were lovely. And the mum goes, did someone steal my child, you know? But at 2, we go into what's called counter-dependence. Now, if we have competition with siblings, or if our parents are actually adult children and they're in competition with us, what's going on there is because we've got to get energy, we can't stay our own self. So we take on what we call roles. And often at this stage we get what's called the lost child.
Wow.
And the lost child is the one that'll be the daydreamer, you know, spends a lot of time in the bedroom and all that sort of thing, is generally the good child, you know.
Right.
And so if the lost child's going to be taken, next one comes along, well, they're not going to get any energy being the lost child. So they might be the rebel.
True.
So they'll be the rebel, they'll be the black
So they have
sheep.
a bit of a role switch.
Absolutely, because it's like baby birds in a nest. Whichever one can stretch up the highest and open their mouth the widest is the one that's going to get the energy.
Yeah.
So if, let's say, first one's hero child, and that's the smart one, well, what energy is the next one going to get from that? So they do dumb. Not as in stupid, but as in, oh, I don't know how to do that. And then mum will go, oh, I've shown you 1,000 times how to do that, you know. And mum's exasperated. And the child is still getting energy because it only thinks emotionally. It doesn't have the cognitive wherewithal to think contrary to the fact until they're 15 years old. Yeah. So you can see how we take on all of these roles over this time. And then in the process, roles have needs, intrinsic needs, and values. So we get confused that we need what the role needs, not what we need.
Yeah, that makes
know?
perfect
Yeah.
sense.
So me as the classic carer, insidious queer people carers, why I call them insidious is because they need people who can't look after themselves. A bit like the film Misery. Have you ever seen that? In the car accident, and
Yes.
she goes to help him, and then he goes to leave, and she breaks his legs, so she can still look after him. So carers.
So just catching on what you're saying there, I can really see why it's important for people to get your message about this, because I'm a believer that everyone who's had kids should have a licence. So your book would be just about a guide to get them through having kids.
Reckon.
Now, we've got a lot to talk about, but I need to throw to a break right now because we've got some important messages from our sponsors. We'll be straight back after this message.
Hi and welcome back to Coaches on the Couch, your relationship specialist exploring human behaviour. Now today's topic of discussion is why we do what we do, and we have Dr. Rosemary McCallum here with us sharing some awesome insights into the roles that we take on at an earlier onset. So let's find out more from Rose about these roles. I'm really intrigued.
Okay, and then we might use perhaps Phil as our victim.
Victim?
Could we?
Oh,
Is victim one of the... How many,
absolutely.
How many childs are there?
There's 6 roles. But there's probably 30 sub-branches under those roles. So we've got the hero child.
Yep.
And then we've got the carer, the mascot, surrogate spouse, surrogate parent, lost child, and rebel. So they're the breakdown of them. But like under the lost child, we'll have the good girl, the nice child, all those sort of things, the daydreamer, the sickly one. Now they all come in underneath the, what we call that lost child. But, you know, whilst we learn skills from those roles, that's great. But unfortunately, it's the deficits that the roles bring. And in my case as a carer, carers never know what they want. They are constantly what others want.
Oh, wow.
So they are outward directed and never get any internal energy. So they end up probably with things like depression and things like that. Our hero child, now Phil, could we say maybe that might have been one of your roles? Looking at you, Phil?
I hold attention to.
Spotlights on
Well, look,
you.
it may have been, but I'm just thinking right now what
Yes.
you said about the carer.
Yes.
Role that you've taken on, because when you speak, because things run around in my head, right? Which is what we all do. We think about our own families as you're speaking, and our own people that we know.
Yeah.
Are they the ones that tend to get unwell as well?
Yeah, they will. Lost child will get unwell also because being sickly is a way of getting attention.
Isn't it?
You know, so but carers tend to get a lot of adrenal fatigue, things like that, a lot of stomach problems.
Yep.
Because deep down inside they're actually resenting.
Wow.
You know, they're resenting that there's never any time for them, but they're martyrs.
Yes.
You know, what would you like? Oh, nothing. Wherever you'd like to go, all that sort of thing. So, yeah, but you can have that whole gambit of roles through your lifetime.
Oh, so good.
You know, it's not, you're not just one. You'll have a favourite for a little while, and it'll depend on what social situation you're in. You know, at work you may be the hero,
Yes.
and then at home you
Might
might
be
go
the
into your
opposite.
room and be the lost child, you know. So it just depends on those psychological triggers, those stimuluses, as to which role is going to place itself forward.
It'd be interesting to find out what role you play, and then also identifying the balance in when to switch it on and off, because what I'm hearing is with the roles comes weaknesses, but also comes incredible strengths.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, look, if I could explain it this way, on a personality trait, excuse me, I'm a sanguine choleric, which means we'll have fun, but we will do it my way.
Your way or the highway.
Yeah, my way or the highway. So cholerics tend to be not very flexible. But having been in the role of the lost child, I learnt flexibility. So it balanced out that more pushy nature. Sanguines tend to be fair weather friends. You know, they get, oh, that's a bit awful, Nicky, I don't want to be there, let's go and have fun. So being the carer taught me compassion. So it's really brilliant to have the role, but it's when that role is now your identity. That's when it's dangerous, when you don't know how to turn it on.
That's right.
You know, and you're on automatic pilot with it 24/7.
Yes.
That's the danger. So our hero children, what happens with them is they're the workaholics. And, you know, and they get stressed about their mistakes and other people's mistakes and hyper vigilant to things, and they can't relax and whatnot. Well, they're the heart attack people.
Right.
Yeah,
You know.
okay. They're the
How
ones
do
that-
you find out what role you are? Like, let's use Phil for an example,
Let's
because
use
we
Phil.
wanted to.
Yeah. Okay.
Because you wanted to, good on you.
because you wanted to.
We alluded to it before.
Yeah, we did
Okay.
allude to
Oh,
it.
so it's your way or the highway.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's how
so-
clear it
That's right.
yeah, that's what happens.
So Phil, in your hero child probably presents round about the 7-year-old.
It may do.
Yes, you know, like might be the athlete, it might be the scholastic person or something like that. But it's about doing more and more. And the problem with hero children is they actually fear success in the end. Because they go, oh, I've done so much to get here. I can't pull anything more out of myself. And then they beat up even more. So, you know, if you were in competition with one of your siblings,
Yes.
or even a parent for that fact.
Oh, look, here's what I found. Well, back in the early days of my life, I used to drive trucks. Driving trucks was the thing I loved doing. My dad had a truck, so I was always going to drive trucks. And I remember he got me my first job, and it was working in a warehouse when I was 18. And I didn't like it. I wanted to drive a truck. And the guy that used to pick up from the warehouse, I jokingly said to him one day, look, if ever you want to retire, I'll buy the truck from you. And a few months later, he unfortunately got ill and said, do you still want to buy my truck? I bought my truck. I said to Dad, hey, I've got a truck. And he said, yeah, this is the worst thing you could possibly do. You never make a living out of this. So I then went into, well, I'll show you.
That's
I went into
classic hero.
a massive,
Yeah.
I'll show you, I started earning more money than him, had the better truck than him, the bigger, cleaner, you know. It was just really weird. And I wasn't going to, and not only just him, but everyone else around me, like every other truck driver, right? I had to have the latest, the greatest, carry more loads, you know, do more. And it was just a crazy competition. And it wasn't until, I had the realisation through some coaching, it was like, well, I can still do what I'm doing, but it's a benefit now. And then that I can actually show and be a leader, as opposed to showing off and not letting anyone find out if I'd made a mistake, I was never going to reveal it, right? Because it was like, that's going to put a flaw on me. I don't want to be seen as being fallible or even vulnerable in any way, shape or form. So it's like, it's okay to make a mistake. And it took me years to get that.
But how exhausting was that?
Oh,
Phil?
it cost me marriage.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm not surprised. Yeah, absolutely.
It cost me, because I was my way or the highway.
Yeah.
This is how
yeah.
it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's that high competitiveness
Yes.
of the hero child, that you actually never relax. You know, it's even how quick can I sleep? I'm in competition with sleeping.
Yeah.
Can
you play a mixture of different
absolutely.
roles?
Yeah, you know, it depends on the time of the day.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I'm getting
time
up
of
in
the
the
day.
morning.
I'm going to be a hero child.
Yeah, it's hero
So
child
don't
time.
work.
I'm really sick of that. I'm not getting anything out. I think I'll become the victim now, and I'll just be, you know, unfair. And if someone cared about me and all that sort of thing. You hear it in the language.
Yeah.
You hear it in the language of what people speak. And if you played it and showed it back to them and then gave them what that role is, they'd actually laugh.
True.
But funny and all as it is, it's a tragedy.
It is. Stay with us because we got some awesome stuff to discuss after this break. Please don't go away. See you after this message.
Hi and welcome back to Coaches on the Couch, your relationship specialist exploring human behaviour. Today's topic is why we do what we do, and we've got Dr. Rosemary McCallum with us, sharing some awesome insights
Isn't she?
around the roles that we play in life. Now, Rose, I'm dying to know, in terms of our values and needs, how does that align to the roles that we play? Like, how do the values and needs come out with the roles that we're sort of playing in life?
One of the difficulties of that, and that's a really great question, Sharon, because what the problem is that, as I said before, each role has its own set of needs and its own values. So often we're not living our truth. You know, we have intrinsic values that resonate at a heart core, and you know when you're not in value because you feel guilty. You know, if you value honesty and you tell a lie, you're sort of a bit, But if you don't value it, you don't give a rip. You know, so...
I think of Donald Trump right now.
I don't think that's big on his list of values, you know. So the problem with the role is it's like a lot of actors who are comedians get into roles and they can't identify who they are when they come out of the role, so they go into depression, because all of their energy is about them. But the problem with a role is a role must hook energy. It can't receive source energy. It demands that somebody gives energy back to them. Now that becomes depleting. We've all known walking rain cloud people, you know, that you go, oh, I hope they don't ring, oh my gosh, they've rung, you know, and everyone wants to cut their throat afterwards. So it's
there goes half an hour of my life.
you know, so they have to drag this energy all the time. And we do the same as a carer or the hero or the surrogate spouse, which is a really interesting role. And there is no sustainability for it in actually vibrational energy. So what you start to do is you start to deplete the energy that's needed to run your body, to actually use it to feel good. And that's where disease comes from. So roles generally have negative emotions. There's very few positive emotions in roles. And so they just deplete over time. And this is where people sort of get sour when they get old.
And of course, if you're not aware of it, you'd have no conscious sort of...
No distinction.
No distinction.
No, it's because it's like a talent. You know when you've got a talent, and which I don't have for catching balls. Hopeless. Like that. My husband just goes, oh, don't even bother. You know, but he's really good at it, you know, and he doesn't think about that. It doesn't question his mind, well, I can't catch one. You know, so you just keep using it. But these roles, because you've been conditioned, it's the Pavlov's dog.
Yes.
You know, you salivate before the bell's even tingled, you know. So the problem, though, is if we don't identify them, we perpetuate them, and our children mirror back to us our unloved parts. And this is where you get that generational belief systems going on. You know, and it's really fascinating when you get into that. About, you know, if a parent goes, my child goes, oh, my child's being, you know, really willful and horrible. And I said, well, where don't you love that in you?
It's always a perfect place to start.
Because they're just mirroring your unlovable parts.
There's something you've said it twice now, and you said both times after you said it's an interesting, and that was the surrogate spouse. Well, this is the this is when we've got you know, couples come together.
ridiculous happily ever after idea of how it's going to work out.
Good on Walt Disney.
Yeah, okay, good on you, Walt. Well, actually, interestingly enough, those stories, those fairy tales, were actually old spiritual myths. And with the intake of Christianity and then the Spanish Inquisition, they went underground and were brought back as what we call fairy tales for children. But at a deeper level, we understand. And Prince Charming, of course, is your higher self. So what happens is when we're hoping for that other person to meet the needs within us, and they don't, people turn on their children. And surrogate spousing is when, and it's either cross-gender or same-gender. It's not reserved for cross-gender and whatnot. But that's when they invest a whole lot of energy into the child, and the child loses their childhood. They hear all the problems of the family, all that sort of, oh, your father's done this, oh, your mother's done that. And the child is and they go, oh, they're such a little adult. And the thing is, when they grow up, they are obsessive controllers, and they've never known what it is to have fun.
They've missed a big chunk.
A huge chunk, because play is development.
How would it play out in a relationship?
Oh, huge, because if you're a surrogate spouse, you never leave your parent. So therefore, it's almost like incestual, what do you call it, bigamy. You know, you sort of got two partners. Excuse me, my father was a classic example. Whatever my mother did, oh, that was lovely, Mary, but my mum did it so much better.
Wow.
And, you know, and so she was never really, there was three in the relationship, and that's what happens with surrogate spousing.
Rose, has been so great having you here today. The conversations that we've had, and I'm sure the viewers back home have really enjoyed this episode. Rose, just before we close the episode, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do with your clients around this area to assist them?
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure, because it's such an important aspect of our lives to start to understand how to learn to be authentic and to be real. So basically, our major thing is we will see clients independently, but we do encourage them to come and do what we call an inner child workshop.
Right.
Now, most people sort of have a gasp and nearly wet themselves when we say that, but that's okay. And we promise them that they will be safe. But, you know, when we were children, we weren't heard. And learning to understand where we took on our roles and how we lost our true self in the process is so vital. Because what happens is in any relation, whether it be a loving relationship with children, workplace, friend or anything, half the time we're not turning up real.
Yeah.
We're turning up as a role, you know, and how can we create solid foundation, solid families and whatnot when nobody's real?
Yeah, and it's some wonderful thoughts to leave our viewers with, to really ponder on that, because it is really crucial in all areas of your relationships, including the most important one, the one that you have with yourself.
That's where it all starts.
Rose, thank you very much for coming onto the show today for our final episode for the season.
Well, thank you for the honour, guys. Appreciate it, and thank you, audience.
Excellent. So thank you very much for watching Coaches on the Couch, and if you'd like to know more about today's episode, you can head on over to www.coachesonthecouch.com or the Facebook page.
So coachesonthecouch.com, hit that contact us button and you can please send us in your email.
Thanks for watching Coaches on the Couch.